Love and health form the foundation and pillars that support all that you do to create fulfillment and success in every aspect of your life. Love within us guides our paths while our health enables us to drive forward. The two are inseparable and vital for growth and reaching your fullest potential. Welcome to Love and Health in America with Dr. Doohi Lee and Jens Johnson. Dr. Lee is an international speaker, author, inventor of the Diamond Matrix, and medical director of Advanced Surgical Arts.
The way I see my role is that I'm a guide.
Jens Johnson, the Mindset Master, is a best-selling author, speaker, and executive managing director of Dallas eWomen Network. Please join them and explore all the facets of love and health to achieve and live your abundant life. Here are your hosts, Dr. Doohi Lee and Jens Johnson.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Love and Health in America. And we are so excited, or I should say I'm so excited, Dr. Lee, for this episode today because we're going to be talking about vaccines.
Yes.
And you know, one of the things that we discussed on our last episode was immunity,
right,
and how to build up our immune system and how to fight off not just COVID, but how to fight off everything, right? So we can be a healthier, stronger person. And one of the things that we've discussed is because of the political, everything is political these days.
Yeah, right.
That people just don't even really know where to go. You know, for healthcare is being politicized, where do you go to find the truth, unbiased information, right?
Yeah.
Here,
Love and Health in America.
You come to Love and Health in America. That's exactly right. So we're going to talk about vaccines, and we're going to get the skinny. We're going to get the skinny from Dr. Lee.
Yeah,
on,
I'll do my best.
Yeah, what are vaccines all about, and what are the pros and cons?
Okay. So as Jens, just mentioned, this is a sort of a segue or continuation from our last episode. We talked about immunity, and in that I mentioned vaccines a little bit, but obviously the topic is really too large, and we thought it'd be good to actually devote a whole segment on this. So the idea behind this is to give you some information about vaccines, some maybe a little science, and I don't want to go into too much depth on the science, but so for those of you who are interested, can do a little bit more research and find out more and kind of topics that interest you and of course also affect your family and your loved ones as well. Now, before I say anything, I want to preface this by saying that what I'm going to talk about is really scientific. I may have a little bit of personal opinions or whatever, but this really is not a medical advice in any way. And so please don't take it that way for those of you who are listening. And this really is for information, so you can arm yourself with hopefully some things that maybe you don't know about, and you can do some research and make the right decisions for you. And just as Jen said, everything is politicized, all the way from COVID-19 to everything else, and everything is biased, and it's really hard to dig up the real idea of what is the true science behind this. And that really is sort of the purpose of this, to kind of at least give you some, the nitty-gritty nuggets of what, some of these topics are. So that's the purpose of this. So having said that, just to start, so what are vaccines? This is really a continuation of our strengthening our immune system, right? And so there are different ways to do this, and we talked about supplements and exercise and diet and all those kind of wonderful things, and that is still needed. If you're not healthy, vaccines by themselves don't do much good. So you still want to go and make sure you do your homework and make sure you become healthy as part of setting up the foundation for vaccines. So vaccines are ways to really fortify our immune system to a particular disease or pathogen. Okay, so ideally, we could all get all the diseases in the world, and our bodies will set up to fight all those, and we'll set up our immune system. But of course, that's not practical, and a lot of people are going to die, and all kinds of things happen. So that's not the idea. Is to set up an immune system that way. So what we do is we develop scientifically to set up and incite a defense mechanism within our own bodies. And that's what vaccines do. They actually go in there with a certain different protocols, and that allows our own cells to set up different defense mechanism. So when a real pathogen comes in, that we're already ready. You want to have your fortification built up before the war comes, right? And so this is what this is. So there are several, 4 different basic types of vaccines. Okay, one is called the live attenuated vaccine, which is actually the real bug. The virus or bacteria, they're real bugs, but they made it weaker by some chemical means and whatnot. So if you get that, a real bug is going in there and sets up the immune process, and your body goes in, recognizes that, oh, this is a bad bug, it doesn't belong here, so I'm going to kill it. And that whole response of developing, the B cells with the long-term immunity, or T cells, which are the actual killer cells, are different responses depending on what the pathogen is. And so that's one. And things like chickenpox and smallpox and the MMR, the measles, mumps, and rubella, those are classic examples of live bugs that are attenuated, so your body can fight that off. And of course, every one of those things have side effects, and I'll talk about that a little later. The other one is actually inactive. That the actual bugs are there, but they're actually completely inactivated. But the antigen or the little signals that incite the body is still there. Okay, so they can't really cause disease because the bugs are dead. Okay, so like a flu vaccine we have, and those kind of things are actually good. Even polio shot is something similar that can work that way. So, and they have actually a very good immune response, but sometimes it gets attenuated, so you have to get a booster shot. So like the flu shots, we get it every year because number one, the flu viruses mutate. So what you have this year will be different next year. And then of course, even if they stay the same, the immune response gets weaker, so you have to get some boosters. And the other one is called a subunit, the actual parts of a virus, parts of bacteria, okay, conjugated subunits. So actually take that, be it a protein that is actually on the coating or the surface of these viruses or bacteria, and they take that and then use that to incite immune response. So you inject that particle, and your body sees this as a foreign substance, and you set up a whole cascade of developing, the long-term B cells and T cells and killer cells and things like this. So it's like pneumococcal vaccines, meningococcal vaccines, things like that. Papillovirus and the hepatitis B vaccines, things like that, and shingles even use this mechanism. And I'm sure a lot of people out there probably had some of these vaccines as well. The last one is what's called toxins. Things like tetanus and diphtheria, they actually produce little poison, toxins, and we inject that, and your body recognizes that as toxins, and you attack the source of toxin that way. The thing about the reason we're talking about vaccines now is because with coronavirus, we're talking about, okay, how do we treat this? How do we combat this? And vaccines are being developed all over the world. And President Trump was just in the hospital, of course, and came out, and he's pushing full ahead with vaccine development. So I think most of us are really interested in the topic of vaccines, really because of coronavirus. I mean, of course, I'm a doctor, I'm familiar with this stuff, but most people is like, well, I got my vaccines as a kid, I don't have to worry about it. But now with the coronavirus coming in, all of a sudden, oh my God, what do I do? How do I protect myself, my family, my friends? And so that's why I think the vaccine topic is important. So this brings in sort of advances in science. There are new, different types of vaccines that people are using that are different than the traditional 4 types I just mentioned. So one of those are DNA and RNA types. And coronavirus, we know, is an RNA type of a virus. And so the focus really is on the RNA type of vaccinations for coronavirus. And the main one I think that people are looking at is something called corona CV mRNA 1237. That's the one that's primary that's being developed. So how do they work? They're actually, the RNA is actually a bit of genetic code that actually sends to the cells. It actually takes a genetic information, goes to the cells to produce these different proteins. And the advantage of RNA virus is that it doesn't actually go into the nucleus and doesn't actually affect the DNA of the cell itself, but actually starts off by setting up the cell to make the proteins that are antigens. And then, as the antigens come out of the cells, your body sees, oh, these are not good things. So the whole human response with the B cells and T cells get incited and creates an actually very strong response against the antigen. So it's better than having the coronavirus, obviously, because you don't actually get the disease, because you can get the disease with the mRNA vaccine.
But if you're healthy,
Yeah.
if you're a healthy person like myself and so many others.
You're so healthy.
Like so many others of you out there, if you're healthy,
Yeah.
do you need this?
Yes. Well, that is the whole question. That is the actual question that we're going to talk about in a sort of undercurrent.
Right.
My personal thinking is, because I mean, I've gotten the flu vaccines. This is me talking personally, okay? I've gotten flu vaccines many times because during training, you have to. They make you do it because you're exposed to patients and whatnot. So I've gotten that. I still remember this. Every time I get the flu vaccine, a week or two later, I get sick and I come down with the flu. Never fails. So once I'm done with training, I say, okay, that's it. Last time I'm going to get flu vaccines. Never gotten it since. Never get the flu during the flu season. I keep myself healthy. Echinacea, vitamin D, zinc now, plenty of exercise, good health. I mean, I do get sick once in a while, but I can't remember the last time I was sick. So, my whole philosophy as a doctor is if you have a strong, healthy body with strong immune system, and we have so many things that can help you boost your immune system. We talk about this all the time.
All the time.
How do we actually boost our immune system? Sunlight, vitamin D, zinc, all the supplements and whatnot, exercise. Then the question really has to do with, okay, how much damage could something like coronavirus do to you? Well, yeah, it will. Obviously, I think President Trump was very healthy. I think he's very healthy. Just looking at him, unbelievable energy, robustness, and I think he's a very healthy person to begin with. But I think that's one of the reasons why he did so well in responding to this. I mean, you still need some medications and whatnot, but the whole idea of do you need a vaccine is really a personal choice, in my opinion.
Right, and I agree. I agree that it's a personal choice, and I agree because healthcare is beginning to be so politicized, and we've discussed it as well. The sciences, you used to think that science was absolute, but it's not absolute.
Well, it is.
But
gravity is absolute.
But here's the thing, though, because it's been politicized, there's two sides to the story.
Yes.
And
interpretation of science is different.
Right.
But the science by itself is absolute.
But I do believe that it needs to be a personal decision based on what your specific situation is.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there are side effects.
Of course, they all do. Every
There
one of
are
those
side
vaccines
effects.
I mentioned, they all have side effects, including even mild case of the illness. If you actually take the live attenuated, if you're really weak, you can actually get the problem. But I mean, side effects go from minor problems all the way to death.
Right.
And some of the things, for children, even including seizures and whatever. So there was a huge controversy about vaccines that happened, about 5-6 years ago, with the whole movement with anti-vaccines and whatnot. I mean, that is just, that can go in. We don't want to get into all that, but it's because of the side effects. Question is, does autism is that associated with vaccines and some of the byproducts of vaccines? I mean, we can debate that endlessly. Nobody really has a definitive answer on that, and that's the thing you're talking about in terms of the science being sort of fudgeable.
Well, and the fact that there are other things that are being put into vaccines. Like mercury was added into vaccines from
thimerosal.
Just for the shelf life, to extend the shelf life. And that mercury, of course, is horrible for us. So, when we're talking about vaccines, and you said even with the flu shot, viruses mutate.
Yeah.
So if you've got the coronavirus right now and you have a vaccine that's developed for this coronavirus right now, isn't the virus going to mutate and it's going to be different? And so you might get a vaccine now, but you still could get the coronavirus or a form of it later.
Yeah, definitely. That is definitely a possibility and probability. One thing that kind of, as people are finding out now, whether it's good or bad, okay, and that opens the door to a whole other controversy, which we don't want to get into. Coronavirus is not mutating as much as the natural viruses. Of course, that raises the question, okay, what is this thing? Is this really a natural virus, or is it quote unquote manufactured man-made virus? And that's a whole other controversy thing we don't want to touch into. But because of that quote unquote
let's get into
stability, we're going to need 4 hours. We're going to need 4 hours.
Let's get into it, Doctor.
Oh my God, I know. Oh geez, I mean,
we don't have enough time.
I know all the sides.
But just wait.
We'll have some people on the opposite side come in.
Right.
And talk about that. So anyway, the stability of coronavirus, in a sense, is an advantage because if you develop an mRNA vaccine against the coronavirus, because it's stable, it may actually last longer and be able to use it longer. That's sort of the thing that we're talking about.
Okay, so you did such an eloquent job going over the 4 vaccines, did he not?
Did anybody fall asleep
It was
out
amazing.
there? Are you guys still awake?
He did a great job.
You're awake?
Okay, so this new vaccine that you're discussing, how many other vaccines are there like that? With you said call it RMA?
RNA and DNA vaccines.
Okay, RNA and DNA.
Right now, there aren't any.
Okay, so
they
there
don't
you
exist
go.
Yet.
Okay.
This is the new one, first one there. And then, there are labs developing and pharmaceutical companies developing.
Right.
They're at a race trying to develop this, and you know about the Gates Foundation, all the stuff out there. But we don't have an existing RNA virus yet.
See, so that scares me, Dr. Lee.
I know, because that's what people talk about.
That scares me because I don't want to be the guinea pig.
Right.
But we've said it in our last episode. We have said it today. Your best defense truly is building up your immune system, and not just your physical immune system, but your psychological immune system as well, which I am thrilled because our episode next week is we're going to have a physician on, and we're going to talk about the psychological
Actually,
immune
I brought
system.
something here. I don't know if you can zoom in on this or not, but it just came to my office yesterday. Texas Medicine goes to all the doctors, but it talks about, isolation, anxiety, drugs, alcohol, suicide, panic, all the emotional, psychological, biophysical things that go on apart from the coronavirus itself as a secondary effect of the lockdowns and everything that we're going through nationwide. And this is real.
Right.
Sometimes actually even bigger problem than, coronavirus itself. So.
Well, so if, you've got people and they're trying to figure out, okay, where is the best place for people truly to dig into research so they can make the best decision for them?
Well, I mean, if you're a little nerdy like me, then you can actually go to PubMed, and actually you can get abstracts and real papers of real scientific
and how do you spell that?
P as in Paul, UBMED. It's a free resource run by NIH. So
say it again, Dr. Lee.
It's PubMed.org.
P-U-B?
P-U-B-M-E-D.
B like boy?
Yeah.
Okay.
P as in Paul.
I mean, see, I'm hard.
B as in boy.
I'm going to have to rewind this a couple times.
M as in mom. Med, like medicine.
Okay.
Pub, like published medicine.
They're loving me out there, Dr. Lee, I'm telling you, because they're writing it down.
I'm not pronouncing it.
You're writing
enunciating clearly.
You're writing it down.
So, PubMed.org. Anyway,
okay.
So if you go there, you can type in any topic in a search bar, and you get hundreds of research papers.
And is it unbiased?
It's unbiased. This is real science papers.
All right.
Let's not get into that either. But these are actually peer-reviewed scientific papers that have been published in various journals around the world. I mean, a lot of them obviously in American journals, but foreign journals as well. So we can find some very interesting articles that go way back. It's not even just past only 5 years or 2 years. I mean, you can find articles that go back 30, 40, 50, 60 years, depending on how hard you dig. So that's my main research. And I really do a lot of my research there, because that's where I feel like as a doctor and scientist, I need as unbiased and unblemished, papers and facts as I can. I mean, you can sit there and talk about, bias in research too, and there's no end to any of that stuff, but you got to stop at some point and accept, okay, these are the different papers. And also you can get, papers that say one thing and papers that say something else. So you can kind of weigh the opposite side. Even in scientific research, you get oppositional views too. So you can look at that, and that probably is your clearest way to really kind of decipher some of these things we're talking about.
I liked it how you said you have to stop. I mean,
I know.
you have to have a stopping point somewhere.
Exactly.
You really do. I mean, even with the TV, I'm not one of those that likes to have the TV on all day. I just don't like that. I don't need background noise. I don't need it. I don't need the background noise. I'd rather do what I need to do and then only turn the TV on when I want it, so I'm in control of it.
Yes.
But everything. I mean, it can be a distraction. The TV, all of the media, it's too much. Yeah. So you've got to have a stopping point. Yeah. It's like that stop the insanity.
Yeah.
You've got to have a point that, you're going to take in a certain amount of research that you're going to deem is needed for you to make a decision. Because there are, vaccines I think are controversial because of, like we've said before, the fact that everything is being politicized. But there have been a lot of vaccine injuries.
Oh, a huge amount around the world, and certainly the United States. I mean, these things are real. This is real medicine. I mean, none of the drugs we take, including something as common as Tylenol, are problem-free. I mean, this is a real issue. And aspirin, Tylenol, all the stuff that we take every day and take it for granted, yeah, for most of us, they're fine. But I mean, if you actually look at the insert that comes in a bottle of Tylenol, you should look at it. It's a tiny little crinkly paper. They open it up, and it's like, a mile long. But it lists every little complication that has ever happened, including death. And this is from Tylenol. So it can happen.
Right.
Okay? So vaccines are a lot more sophisticated,
There's a lot of money in vaccines, Dr. Lee.
Huge
A
amount.
lot of money.
But
a lot of
but
money in
we
these
just talked
vaccines.
about even things like seizures in children and adults and all kinds of problems, including death. And these are real things. And when polio vaccine first came out, I mean, the first trial it went through. I mean, a lot of people got sick and a lot of people died from polio. But that's considered one of the most successful vaccination trials and administrations in history that changed really the world in so many ways. But I mean, people paid for it with their lives, not as an experiment, but as a side effect of the
So
vaccine.
here is a question that I have.
Yeah.
When you've got COVID and the death rate is so small, it really is so low. I mean,
now we're seeing this is less than the flu.
right. So if you've got this virus that is the death rate is a very low number, why do we even need a vaccine?
Well, I think it's because of politics, and I think it's because of the scare. And I think the overall response, this is my personal opinion now, overall response to this pandemic has been so overblown. And just depends on what news channel you listen to and what you hear. Because if you hear a certain idea over and over and over again nonstop, and it just gets worse and worse and every day, it'll change your perspective about the world and what the disease or the calamity we're facing. You can be hopeful about it and be optimistic and say, okay, we can beat this, or oh my God, we're all going to die, and I better do something to, take care of my affairs before I get the coronavirus and die. I mean, it's been almost to that level of polarity, and I think that's what we're suffering with. And I think one of the driving forces behind vaccine development is because of the fear that has been instilled, and people are living in fear, and they're looking for something to, as a quote-unquote salvation, if you will, to say, I need this vaccine to feel safe, to safeguard myself and my family and all that. I think that's really one of the main reasons it's out there. Scientifically and medically, personally, I mean, like as we're talking about, for this episode and last episode, if you can strengthen yourself, make yourself as healthy as possible, yeah, you can get the disease, because a lot of people have, but the course of you going through and recovering from it will be vastly superior than necessarily having the vaccine or not. So.
Right. What saddens me, and I'm a very positive person, and so believe me when I say sadden me,
it's gonna be pretty bad.
It doesn't mean I'm losing sleep over it. But what saddens me is that I know a lot of people don't have as strong of a mindset as I have, and when like you said, when somebody is told negative things over and over again, psychologically they begin to believe that. They begin to have fear, and when somebody is in a state of fear or they're stressed out, their brain isn't even processing correctly.
No, it's not.
And
well, your cortisol level goes up.
So your body goes into that fight or flight, and you're not even responding like you normally would.
Well, it completely changes your body's chemistry and physiology and immune system. And this is one of the things we're going to talk about with our next guest, next episode. But it's a perfect segue into what we're talking about, from immunology, immune system strengthening, to vaccines. And then now we're talking about the idea of how do you use your emotional state and your spirituality. Because that's not something I can prescribe to you. I can't write a prescription and say, go home and be happy. I suppose I could, but I don't think anybody will listen. Okay? Okay. Happiness, 30 minutes, 3 times a day. Okay? Go and do that. Okay? That's my prescription. But if you can actually do that, make it a practice to meditate, yoga, all those things that actually benefit not only your mental and spiritual setting, but that literally has a tie into the physiology of making you healthier. It's unbelievable. There's a whole science behind this And that's something we talked about at the Diamond Matrix thing, way back when. But there really is based on science.
Well,
And so your positive attitude overall, because you're always bubbly. I mean, every time I meet you, you're smiling and you're bubbly. You're always positive about everything. So I think that's probably one of the main reasons why you're so healthy and strong.
Well, I think that we get to decide. We get to decide how we feel. We get to decide what we think, and we are in control of that. And that's really, in my opinion, the truth.
Yes.
That's the real narrative. But people are being manipulated and things are being thrown at you. And listen, I think it's a great idea for Dr. Lee if you say spend 30 minutes every day being happy.
I'm going to start doing that.
I think you should start doing that.
I hope they don't report me to the medical board. Do you know what he wrote me as a prescription?
They probably would, Dr. Lee. That's what's so sad, isn't it?
God.
That's
That'd
what's
be
so
really
sad.
Yeah.
And it really is the reason I think that there are people that leave the medical world because they understand that there's so much more to treating someone and helping someone become a full, complete person.
Yes.
And when they do start to share the meditation and the impact of happiness and being positive, they are ridiculed and worse than that.
Yeah, exactly, which is really unfortunate. But there's real, as I said, there's a real physiologic basis for happiness, and I mean even something as esoteric as neuro-linguistic programming, where you can actually fixate on a word or phrase, and you can actually train your mind that if you say a word or say this phrase, it will reprogram your brain and change your physiologic state. I mean, that's a very high level sophistication.
Right.
Tony Robbins talks about things like this. And but this is real, that you can actually train your brain, train your mind to a point where, okay, my go-to word, my go-to phrase, or my, I don't want to say clutch, but that is this.
Right.
And if I'm upset or whatever, I can go and calm down and say, okay, I'm going to say this, and it'll help me reprogram and reset my mental, emotional state. And people can get into this. It's just from practicing and understanding it.
Right. It's amazing. It's amazing. And I'm telling you, I love our conversations because they're so real. And I think they're conversations that people are having. And there are thoughts, and we want to hear from you. We want to know what you're thinking. We want to know, is there something specific that you'd like to hear from Dr. Lee? Or when we talked about love and health in America, we started it with love because we know that's really the answer to every question is love. I mean, truly.
That's the foundational basis.
If we would just approach our life that the answer to every one of your questions is love, and how can I respond to this and experience and exhibit the most love possible, I promise you, your immune system would be boosted. It would go through the roof. You would not live in fear. You would live with faith and hope and happiness and joy. And that's really what we're here to do. We're here to make your life better with everything that we do. So please engage with us. Let us know. And do you have anything else, Dr. Lee?
Well, love, it really is the ultimate positive attitude. Really. I mean, if you're in love, or if you are loving your kids or your parents and your friends and whatnot, if you're in that state of having that feeling of loving and giving and encompassing and embracing, I mean, where's the room for negativity there?
Right.
There really isn't any. And that's what I think expands not only yourself, and that's what actually entering into the world of spirituality and religion and God and all those kind of things we talk about, but that really is the foundation of everything we talk about, and then health and physiology and all the stuff that I come in as a doctor in terms of treating the body, and I cannot ignore obviously the spiritual and emotional part. More and more as I go through my own journey of learning about all these kind of things, I realize, wow, my profession really is doing about half of that, maybe even not even half, but all I'm trying to do is enhance the body so you can actually take that and boost your emotional and spiritual side to maximize it. And that's where the real integration comes in. And I think our title of our talk and our show, Love and Health, is really perfect in its sense of encompassing the whole.
It is, and I think it's so important before we close that we realize that doing things that you're passionate about, that is love
Yes,
as well.
sure.
And it really does, when you are living your life in love, you're doing things that you're passionate about, you are living in the present.
Yes.
And you're not worried about the mistake you made, earlier this morning,
Oh,
because
I still do.
believe me, I know Dr. Lee.
I do.
Hey, we all do, but we gotta stop that, because there's nothing we can do about the past except learn from it, and we don't want to worry and stress ourselves out about what's going to happen in the future.
Exactly.
So find what you're passionate about, do what you love,
Sure.
and join us for our next episode. You're going to love our guest. She's amazing. So until we meet again, share your love.
And live healthy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.